Hey everybody, this is Jason Fowler with the Union of Sinners and Saints, and you're listening to Classic Christian Rock Podcast with Wildman and Steve.
I want to welcome you to the Classic Christian Rock Podcast. Steve Perkins, Latin teacher, rock and metal enthusiast, is with me once again. How are you doing today, Steve?
I'm doing great, Wild Man. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I was thinking of something earlier today, and bear with me now. I'm hoping this is a good lead-in. Years ago, I was watching a documentary about a band, and I'm not going to mention the name of the band, but I remember they were talking about the drummer of the band, and they were saying that drummers pretty much are the craziest ones in the band. And the one guy even said, he spoke up, the one member of the band spoke up and said, when you beat on things for a living, it does something to you. So we're going to try to find out if that's true or not. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Michael Feighan here today from Whitecross, King James, has worked on several projects over the years and working on new stuff coming up. Michael, welcome to the program. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you so much for having me on, Wildman. Thank you, Steve. It is an honor to be asked to come on this.
Oh, well, we appreciate your time. We really do. I can remember being in, I guess you would call it similar to what they would say, a mosh pit. And I can remember hearing Rex Carroll speaking into the mic saying, would you like to hear Michael Feighan on drums? And we all cheered. And then he said, would you like to hear Michael Feighan on drums? He said it about 3 times until finally we got loud enough and he turned it over to you. And we were just enthralled with the amazing drumming that was taking place at the time. So it's an honor. It's an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much.
So if we could go back a little bit, what was your inspiration that got you involved in music in the first place?
Well, my dad was in the military. He was in the Air Force, and we traveled all around the United States, internationally as well, Turkey, Germany, Guam. And I think I was probably about 13, 14, and we were stationed in Turkey at the time, and the school was really small. I mean, I think the graduating class for the seniors was like 8 people. So the school had a total of like about 250 kids.
Wow.
So everybody knew everybody. And I remember this one guy that always walked around with drumsticks in his back pocket. And it was just like, whoa, man, what's up with that guy? And he was just so cool to me. It was just like, a rock star to a young kid like that. And that's, I think I got my first kind of like real interest in music. And just from there, I think I got into Kiss. Kiss was a big band back then. Rush. And, started taking drum lessons and then I was raised Catholic and got to a point, where I was like, it's something with just, I knew God. And I'm probably going way past what the question you asked. But, I ended up making Christ Lord of my life. And, then I was introduced to like Stryper, became a huge fan of Stryper. But then, and just always just that passion for music and to like excel at the craft that God had given me.
Wow, that is great. So one of the things I'd like to hear, because I'm a huge Whitecross fan, and I know Steve is as well, but I know just in my high school years, I saw you guys 6 times.
Wow.
So every time you came around, I was there. And so just curious, what was it like? How did that relationship begin? Was it something where Rex called you and said, "Hey, Michael, are you interested?" And just share maybe what the story was like and what excitement that might have been when you were asked to be a part of the band.
Yeah, sure. So my dad had retired in San Diego, and I was playing locally with a Christian band called Fair Warning, and that was kind of fizzling out a little bit. And I'm trying to think how I met this guy. It was through another friend, but I met a guy named Bob Hardy, and he was the singer for a band called Servant. I think they were out like before Petra.
Okay.
I think they were signed on some label, but he was playing some shows and he needed a band. And so I kind of got on with him, and I met Butch Dillon,
Okay.
who joined Whitecross with me in 91. But we were playing with this guy, Bob Hardy, and he was good friends with Jim Palisari, who was the booking agent for Whitecross in Chicago. And he said, "Hey, I got a call from my friend in Illinois, and there's a band called Whitecross that needs a drummer and bass player." And I was thinking, "Oh, cool, where are they?" And I didn't realize where they had lived. I was like, "Wow, that's cool. Where are they at?" And he said, "Chicago." I was like, "Oh, well, forget that." And Butch he was from Chicago. He had family there. He's like, "Come on, man, let's go do it." And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah." So we sent like audition tapes in, and we flew out there, and by God's grace, got the gig. And within
Wow.
2 weeks, we were out playing, all around the United States. It was surreal to me. I mean, because like when we were waiting, because actually Butch is working on he's producing my solo project right now, and we were talking about it the other night. And we had to, like, after we auditioned, they had more people that were coming in, and Rex said, "I really like you guys, but we have to honor these other auditions." And so then you're just sitting on pins and needles waiting. And Butch he was always so good. He's like, "Man, don't worry." He's like, "It's gonna be good." And
Wow.
but 2 weeks had gone by, and now Butch was thinking, "Man, So he reached out to Rex, and Rex was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called me back. I lost your guy's number."
Oh, wow.
So we probably had
Wow.
to wait in torture for longer than we needed to.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Well,
that,
I want to
that
ask you a question. You mentioned about taking some lessons, and I'm remembering back to a recent interview we did with Rex Carroll, and he was talking about growing up and learning music in kind of the traditional way, and learning to play in a very traditional way, and then coming around later on going, man, you don't have to learn that way. Really, there's other ways to learn, and he was talking about more fun things for kids to be able to play
Right.
as they're learning, in his case, guitar. Talk to us a little bit about the interplay for you between formal music instruction and stuff that you picked up either by watching your drum heroes or just by playing with other folks.
That's a great question. I think that is probably the most important part of like anybody learning a craft in music, to play with other humans. And because that's stuff you can't really learn out of a book. I think the formal teaching is great to kind of get the fundamentals down, but watching your mentors and trying to emulate as best you can, and then just being out and playing, with other musicians. That was a big part of my learning. Rex is very, his training was real meticulous, going through college, and that's just how he is. I mean, and I envy some of that because I never got any degree in music. But I mean, I still had that passion. Just, when I had friends, they're, when you're a teenager, they go, hey, let's go out to this party, let's go out to, this movie or something. But I always was like, wanted to just stay and keep learning. I was just so into the art of drumming and learning and trying to grow. And so, yeah, that was a big part for me, just, finding these guys that I really looked up to and listening to their stuff, watching videos. And I think that's a big part of anybody learning a music craft.
And I'm going to tag on another question here because I'm thinking about you mentioned videos, and we think about the way things have changed in music, and that's one of the things a lot of times we like to talk about with a guest is how things have changed in the music profession, in terms of recording, in terms of putting music out, over the years. But I remember in the '80s, or it felt like it was the '80s when really the little drum pads, the electronic stuff, really kind of started coming in. You saw guys doing stuff like that. What have you seen change in terms of equipment, in terms of the technology with drums? Because on the one hand, I mean, rhythm, that does the old aspect to music in human history. All right, when somebody first slapped their hands together and started to make some sort of a rhythm. What have you seen change, and what do you like and what do you not like as far as that goes?
Man, things just seem to change constantly, and like with this project that I'm doing now, it was so crazy. I came out to visit my mom here in California for St. Patrick's Day because both my parents were from Ireland, and I was only going to be here for a week. And the day after I got here is when all the chaos started happening, and so it was just a chance where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do this project I've always wanted to do, and Butch lives an hour from my mom. So once we wrote all the songs and we were going to go into the studio to record, the studios were all shut down. And so Butch was like, let's buy an electronic kit. And I was like, no, not an electronic kit. But there was a software program out called Superior Drumming 3. And it's just amazing what you can do now. I mean, I still played all the parts and they're just triggered via MIDI, and then they get converted to audio tracks. But it's just crazy how, technology and all the gear, but especially for recording, it's just like, wow. I mean, it's beyond me. I definitely am not savvy in the understanding of all that, but just watching the way we did the drum tracks for this project I'm doing was like, man, that's crazy because you skip all the miking and worrying about drums being in tune. And it's like the new wave, I think, of recording drums. I talked to Rex about it the other day. I was like, Rex, have you heard of this Superior 3 software? And he's like, yeah, I think I've heard about that. And I'm like, dude, you gotta get this. So it's
Cool.
crazy.
Cool.
Wow. So when you talk about that, and you see what the technology can do today, is there anything about that concerns you? And not always going back to the talking to the young kids and saying, well, back in my day we had to do it this, not necessarily that, but is there anything that concerns you about drummers that are coming up that they might be missing because of the technology, because of something that a lot of the work is done for them? Is that a concern for you when you see young drummers coming up? Are they going to be able to be as qualified as musicians, or are the shortcuts going to affect them?
Wow, that's such a great question. Because there's so many. You can go on YouTube and kind of figure out any part to any song, and like you just see these young musicians who are just